This is a story of a dynasty, a lineage which stretches so far back its true roots are lost to time. A family that has fundamentally changed how humanity fights wars. One renowned for also caring little for those same people as more than serfs. Come hear the tale of the oldest arms dealer in human history, Hurston Dynamics. My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to The AstroHistorian. This is a series where I talk about all things sci-fi and space lore. Today we'll be talking about the first in a short series of videos discussing the history of the Hurston family and the company they founded, Hurston Dynamics. Before I get started, I would like to thank you all for watching these videos. I literally cannot do this without your support, and it means a lot that you chose to watch this video today. Be sure to check out if you've hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to know exactly when these videos come out. Now, let's start with the oldest arms dealer in human history. The history of Hurston is lost to time. What we know is that the family claims their roots extend back to the Middle Ages of Europe, where they sold everything from broadaxes to crossbows. While this is likely an exaggeration, the name is Scottish in origin, with the original name Auerstein, found as far back as 1040 CE in Orkney in the extreme north of Scotland. The family also claims to have designed everything from fixed-wing jet aircraft to atomic weapons, meaning they likely see themselves as inheritors of some 20th century weapons manufacturer, all in an attempt to give themselves more legitimacy. However, it's not out of the question that they are indeed from a long line of arms makers. It would help to explain the meteoric rise of the Hurstons, to go from obscurity to one of the most important institutions in human history. For now, let's look at the first Hurston history has recorded, the progenitor of the modern company itself, Solomon Hurston. While all we know about Solomon Hurston's father is that he was a Hurston, we do know his mother was named Janice the Long. She had founded a successful company before she gave birth to Solomon, but passed away shortly after. He and his father watched as the company was taken away from the family, and this had a huge impact on young Solomon, who ended up growing up in poverty as a result. He wanted to follow in his mother's footsteps, but keep his future company in the family, a chance he would soon get after coming of age. To understand what would become Hurston Dynamics, we need to understand the world the first Hurston was in. Less than a century after the foundation of the first united human government under the United Nations of Earth, humanity first made contact with a sapient alien race, the Banu. While first contact was peaceful, the tense situation around it caused some concerns. Vernon Tarr was an explorer and nav jumper, a profession which took equal amounts of skill and cunning. In the early days of human exploration era, nav jumpers were the best pilots humanity had to offer. They had little in the way of nav computer help and had to rely on their own training and experience to travel through even well-known jump points. Seeing a veteran nav jumper was a rare sight in those days, and Vernon Tarr was as veteran as they come. Additionally, charting new jump points is several times more dangerous, as it requires a lot of quick reflexes and good equipment. To add to all of this, new jump points were very lucrative, so people would often trail nav jumpers to cut into the find of a new jump point if they had a chance. When they found what they were looking for, they would often ambush and kill those nav jumpers in order to claim the right of the new jump point for themselves. That is all to say that Vernon Tarr was an old hat to this game, and was looking for a new jump point he knew was in the Davian system. When another ship suddenly appeared on his sensors, he did what veteran nav jumpers did. He took a shot, thinking it was an ambush by some ne'er-do-wells who were looking to cut in on his find. Thankfully, he missed, and before he could line up another shot, he realized what he was seeing was no human vessel. Quickly realizing his error, he contacted the UNE, who facilitated first contact with the Banu properly. This whole event shook the UNE to its core, knowing how easily a shooting war with aliens could occur if they weren't careful. So in response, the Congress drastically increased the meager military budget to prepare for the worst-case scenario. That is where Solomon Hurston came in. Solomon had become a middleman for government contracts, buying goods for cheap and selling them for profit to fulfill UNE government needs. When the contract to create lasers for a series of military space defense platforms was announced, Solomon realized there was great profit to be had. He knew of a struggling laser manufacturing company whom he may have had dealings with in the past who were perfect for the contract, but couldn't make the amount required for the government's need. Taking a risk, Solomon Hurston took out a loan and bought the company outright, renaming it Hurston Dynamics in 2948. He then took the rest of the loan to drastically upscale production and managed to get the contract from the UNE military. The result allowed him to pay off his loan with a substantial remainder after the fact. Using his connections from this sale, he and his business continued their relationship with the UNE military, and by 2460, Hurston Dynamics was a major military manufacturer. As the company grew, things became far more complex for him alone to handle, so he brought his two sons into the company to help him run it and keep his business in the family. Hurston Dynamics steadily acquired new businesses, mines, and suppliers as their business with the UNE steadily grew, all becoming subsidiaries within the larger company. With each new purchase, a new family member was placed at the head of these acquisitions. However, this is far from simple nepotism. While Solomon wanted to keep it a family business, he felt that in order to succeed, the family member needed to be the best fit for the job, earning the right to run each division. Just being a Hurston wasn't enough. You needed to earn the right to lead. This is best exemplified by the fate of one of Solomon's own sons, Darrington Hurston. While contracts with the government were lucrative for the Hurstons, it was hard to keep costs low while also delivering the products to government specifications in order to make a profit. For Darrington Hurston, this was a major issue, as he was in charge of a factory that produced mag resistors, but the cost was significant enough for them to barely break even. So, rather than reduce costs or improve the production, he cut corners. When his mag resistors failed on a Navy railgun, it exploded and cost the lives of several Navy personnel, with the blame directly on Darrington and Hurston themselves. The Hurston brand was nearly ruined because of this, and caused the company to lose several important contracts. In response, Solomon very publicly fired his son and swore he would never sacrifice quality in order to make a profit, a vow they have stuck to for almost 500 years. While this is a noble statement, in reality they still do cut corners, just not with the final product. Hurstons began to openly and routinely shirk environmental regulations in order to bring down costs, resulting in them being one of the worst polluting companies of all time. This change forced the Hurstons out of many settled systems and into more fringe and remote locations, where their rampant disregard for their impact on the local ecology was less regulated or seen, a trend which continues to this very day. In 2488, Solomon Hurston retired and passed the reins of power to his son Isaiah Hurston, the start of a tradition that continues to this very day. While there isn't much known about Isaiah, he seemed to continue to practice business much as his father before him, keeping the company in the good graces of the UNE military. However, his heir, Ariel Hurston, was poised to be very different. Ariel Hurston became the third CEO around 2514, where he immediately began to shake up the company. He took the idea of reducing costs to a whole new level by introducing the life labor contract. This contract gave Hurston a high degree of control over employees in exchange for housing, medical support, and other social services. It is likely that being forced into the remote areas of the burgeoning human empire meant they were experiencing labor shortages. This was seen by Ariel himself as a fair means to attract workers, offering them significant support and guaranteed employment in exchange for more of their time and labor. In practice, it meant that Hurston employees were often the desperate, the poor, or ex-convicts, and this attracted a lot of negative attention for labor rights groups, who called it effectively slavery. Hurston still denies these claims, saying they offer opportunities few others give to their workers. No matter what, the life labor contract and other new practices worked wonders for the bottom line of Hurston Dynamics. Ariel presided over the company for 2 decades of record profits, and even managed to maintain and grow the company's contracts as the United Nations of Earth reformed into the United Planets of Earth. He is still remembered fondly by the company today, with the first moon of Stanton 1 being named after him. When Ariel stepped down as CEO, little did anyone in the company know that they were about to experience the biggest growth of the company in their short history, and catapult them from being an important government contractor to one of the most important companies in the UEE. In 2530, the Palace system was discovered by nav jumper named Catherine Segovia. She was interested in the job for the money over the fame, so when her initial scans showed a resource-rich system with a planet with a possibility to be terraformed, she turned around and auctioned off the rights to the system to mining and terraforming concerns. Gaia Planet Services won the bid and immediately attempted to terraform the new planet. They did not register this with the new UPE government and did not send out any survey teams, believing the system to be theirs for the taking. To their surprise, as the initial terraforming crew of 276 people were setting up their equipment, they were quickly surrounded and captured by a species we would come to know as the Xi'an, who had controlled the system for many years before the arrival of Gaia Planet Services. In the end, hostilities were averted through tense negotiations, but unlike the gregarious and trade-oriented Banu, the Xi'an were much shrewder and more calculating, demanding the known extent of human space in order to free the humans they had captured. This instantly put the UPE and much of humanity on the back foot, cautious of the Xi'an's true intentions. This would result in even more increase in military budget, and as a result, far more profits for Hurston Dynamics. However, the true boom was to come shortly after. In 2541, only 11 years after the discovery of the Xi'an, Dr. Keller Lynch was working for the New Horizons Research Institute in the Centauri system on Yar. He found out that his job was to be little more than a scientific lackey, for the owner of the institute was the infamous Hathor Group, who had already been exploiting and mismanaging the Nexus system. In response, he abandoned his small research outpost on Yar, but his experience with research drones that he was using at the outpost gave him an idea, and he went exploring the system on a whim. After a few days, his drones made a lucrative discovery, a brand new jump point. Dr. Lynch was no nav jumper though, and he knew the perils of blindly jumping into an uncharted jump point. Yet, he took the risk and managed to survive, emerging into a new system, but not an unpopulated one. The system he discovered was teeming with life, as a space-capable civilization that was near peer with humanity was just starting its expansion from their home system, the very system Dr. Lynch had stumbled into. Unfortunately, Lynch let his curiosity get the better of him as he sent out one of his research drones down to the home planet of the species, an act which very easily could have been seen as a hostile one to the martial species who resided there. When he lost contact with the drone, he returned to Centauri to alert the proper officials, but by then, it was too late. The species he found, the Tevarin, would declare war on the UPE less than a year later, by invading the Idris system and bombing Idris 4 from orbit, capturing it swiftly afterwards. This was great news for the company, but not so great news for one Hurston in particular. Chief Warrant Officer Utho Hurston was part of the UPE Navy's Advanced Special Operations Group, and wife to Julius Hurston, who worked for Hurston Dynamics in the financial department. Julius was known for maximizing efficiency without compromising quality or profits, but his talents wouldn't serve to aid him in the troubles he was about to endure. Utho was serving with the Advanced Special Operations Group during the outbreak of the Tevarin War. Shortly after, likely during the defense of Idris, she was killed in action. Though not a Hurston by blood, in death she came to represent the Hurston values of not just building weapons, but picking them up and using them when the Empire called them. This has a lot to do with her husband. Stricken by grief with her passing, Julius used his skills in finance to set up and run several charities in his wife's name to combat social issues. As a result, Utho has come down in history as a war hero, which can be seen as the fourth moon of Stanton 1 was named in her honor. The rest of the family seemed to come out of the war in a much better state. Before the Tevarin attacked, the UPE had relied mostly on militia and a very small professional military to keep the peace in their growing empire. However, first contact with the Xi'an and then Tevarin War drastically increased the size of the military. This meant more contracts for Hurstons and less questions about their practices, as their work became vital to the security of humanity. Hurston weapons and parts were essential to the victory over the Tevarin, and they seemed to have been rewarded for their efforts when the hero of the First Tevarin War, Ivor Mezer, rose to the position of High General, and eventually Imperator of the new United Empire of Earth. All the while, the company steadily grew, as the new UEE relied more and more on a buildup of weapons to maintain its power, and was more than willing to turn a blind eye to the questionable business practices of Hurston, as long as they saw results. This culminated in the rise of one Archibald Hurston, who became the youngest CEO in Hurston history in the 27th century. Archibald used the lax regulations of the Mezer era to the Hurstons' advantage by vertically integrating the company entirely, meaning that from the miners that removed the ore to the stores that sold the final product and every step in between was all owned by Hurston itself. This drastically cut costs and increased profits, as Hurston could quite literally not be beaten by price or quality. Archibald sealed the company's future by taking the weapons giant and turning it into one of the largest and most profitable companies in the entire UEE. He's remembered fondly by the Hurstons of today, with grand golden statues of him presiding over the entrance to the headquarters of the company. He's also famous for the contempt he showed to the average employees of his own company. His own meteoric rise through the ranks likely gave him a sense that he was simply better than others. His family was a giant in the industry because they were good at what they did. His family members were not just business owners, but engineers, scientists, and soldiers, and each of them had to earn their right to work in those positions, meaning they were the best of the best. So if he could beat them and become the youngest CEO in history, then he was special. Thus, he famously saw those who were in positions below him as less than him. In a cruel sense of honor that seems to be pervasive in the Hurston family, he believed that greatness could also be taught. Thus, his most famous words etched not into just the walls of the Hurston headquarters, but resonating through the culture of the family itself, were,
"Workers must be taught excellence by their betters."
This, among everything else, perfectly encapsulates what the Hurstons have become in the modern UEE, a powerful dynasty of talented individuals pitted against one another to weed out weakness, and to see those subservient to them as children that need to be led as much as managed, all while reducing costs and increasing profits by almost any means necessary. The robber barons of the UEE. And their story is not over yet. I hope you enjoyed the first part of our in-depth look at Hurston Dynamics. Be sure to stay up to date with the future installments by subscribing to the channel. And if you truly enjoyed what you just saw, make sure to hit that like button to help spread the word and grow the channel. I'd like to thank you for watching. A very special thanks to the Dark Law, who lent his voice talents to bring life to Archibald Hurston and to help me with some pronunciation with the Scottish Auerstein. And I'd like to thank those on screen now who support me on Patreon to keep this content going. I'm currently trying to raise enough to hire an editor who can help me increase the quality and quantity of these videos coming, including a timed Patreon exclusive where I cover the entire history of the Star Citizen universe. If that sounds like something you would enjoy, think about joining my Patreons for as little as $5 a month. For now, let me know what you think of the story of the Hurston family in the comments below. And as always, remember, ex historia ad astra.